Yes. They come as a pair. Bring it. Bring it. I'm ready. Who? Yeah. I feel like the cowardly lion. and kind of silly myself. I don't know, something about it. We're here in this series. God never said that, and people have questioned me some things about God, where God said it. And I'm like, all right, okay. Brian was saying we could put that, like complaint, or Brian and Ronnie. I think we'll have a staff meeting Tuesday, and I think we'll have a lot of fun. But we're looking at these misbeliefs that culture has of things that God said, or they say that God said, but He never really did say. And if you missed last week, what we talked about is that God just wants me to be happy. God just wants me to be happy. And really, that's not what He said. He's not really concerned that much with our happiness. He's more concerned with our holiness. Our happiness is not even His highest priority for us. He has more for us. Even the scriptures say that God, who is holy, and because He is holy, He has called us to be holy in all that we do. God's more concerned about our holiness than our happiness. I got to take these off. I'll never get done today. They were so hard to put on. But what I want to look today I want to look at another big misbelief that people have about something that they think God said but never really said. But before I get there, I want to try to get us all on the same page and the process of thinking here is that chances are you are either going into a very difficult season in your life, or chances are you are in the middle of a very difficult season in your life, or chances are you are just coming out of a very difficult season in your life. That we all have these things that happen in our life that just kind of come out of nowhere and they'll wear us out. I know that's not a very encouraging way to start the day. That's why I got the boxing gloves to get a smile on your face, because when you start thinking about discouraging things in our life, maybe you would agree with me. That sounds pretty much like life. It's because when we look at our life, or maybe look at the life of someone we love, and their life is going, and for some reason out of nowhere, it seems like there's more than we can handle that gets dumped on us, and we can't take it anymore, that the struggles are too real, the circumstances are too tough, and we can't quite find our way out of it. I mean, it could be a financial burden. It could be something that you've lost a lot of money and you don't know how to get it back, or you invested in something and it was a bad investment. It could be that you just come home from the doctor's office, he just give you a bad report, or maybe there's a relationship that you have. Maybe it's in your marriage and things are falling apart. There's things in your life that are just not going all that well. Maybe you're just battling depression. It could be any number of things that happen in our life that causes turmoil and these stresses, and the weight of it all gets so heavy on us that we just can't take it anymore. We don't have what it takes, and we're ready to give up. And when we get to that point in our life, we get to that place in our life that we can't take it anymore, it never fails. It never fails that one of these good-intentioned, well-meaning Christian friends of ours will come up and share some annoying advice. You know the ones I'm talking about? Our world is falling apart around us, and they'll put their hand on ours and say, I know. But whenever God closes a door, He opens a window. What? I don't want a window. I need a door. I need a door to walk through. What's with the window? Am I supposed to jump out of the windows? That's not going to help things any. Or they'll say, God helps those who help themselves. Have you ever really processed that thinking, that God helps those who help themselves? Does that mean that I have to be able to take care of any situation myself before God steps in? Because God will help you if you help yourself. Well, if I can take care of myself, what do I need Him to step in for? Why is He waiting on me? And then the number one piece of advice: God will never give you more than you can handle. God will never give you more than you can handle. We hear it all the time. I hear it. People will say it to me. I hear people in conversations, they'll share that God will never give you more than you can handle. And I know they mean well. I can see it in their eyes. They mean well when they talk with me. When they talk with someone else, they mean well, but God never said that. He really didn't. And what's happened over decades, people hearing this in their life, they think that I've heard this so much in my life that God must have said that. It has to be scriptural. It's got to be in the Bible. Can we just look in the Bible and find it? And I looked in there, and what's happened is people have taken what was in the Bible and they've sort of turned it around and misunderstood it. Specifically, what Paul, the Apostle Paul, said to the believers in Corinth. He said this to the believers in Corinth. It's in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and in verse 13. And Paul is talking, and Paul says this. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. We're all tempted to sin, is what he's saying. Everybody is faced with temptation. And God is faithful. Watch this. God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. And when you're tempted, here's the good news. When you are tempted, God, will show you a way out. And it's not necessarily a window. He will show you a way out so that you can endure, so that you can have what it takes, so that you can make it through, so that you can continue the journey of being a follower of Jesus. He will help you do that. He will show you how to do that. Scripture says that God won't let us be tempted beyond what we can stand. And what that means is that sin is always a choice. We always have a choice as to whether we sin or not. And we'll never be tempted to the point that there is no other option but to sin. This is what he's telling us, that we always have an option not to sin. God will always help us. The scripture never says that God will not give us more than we can handle. And if we do a quick survey through the Bible, if we go flying through the Bible really quick, we'll read story after story about people who had more than they could handle, that God gave them more than they could handle. Way back in the start of the Bible, Moses, it was more than Moses could handle. He says, I'm not a good speaker. I'm not a good leader. These people are driving me crazy. I can't do it anymore. I do not have what it takes. God placed him in that position, so God gave him that. Queen Esther. We don't read much about Queen Esther, but her people, her family were about to be annihilated. And their request was to go to the king to stop this annihilation. And she said, I'm very, very afraid. I don't have what it takes. I'm not the person for this. This is too much for me. I can't handle this. Gideon, if you go in the book of Judges, you read about this little man named Gideon. He says, I'm the smallest in my clan. I'm the weakest in my clan. I'm the least important in my clan, in my whole family. God, I don't have what it takes to do what you want me to do. King David, when all the sin that he had in his affair with Bathsheba, when all that came upon him, he was caught up in his sin. And in Psalm 38, Verse 4, this is what David said. He says, my guilt overwhelms me. It is a burden too heavy to bear. I don't have what it takes. This is more than I can handle. And even Jesus, God's Son, when you look in the book of Mark and you look in verse 34, Jesus is getting ready the night before he's arrested, the night before he's about to be arrested. He's facing the cross and he's talking to Peter, James, and John, his closest friends. And he says, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. This is more than I can handle. Father, if there was any other way. See, God never said he would not give us more than we can handle. He never said that. He actually said he would give us more than we can handle. But why? Why would God give us more than we can handle? Why would God put us in a position or allow us to be in our life and and feel the weight and the pressure of the issues and the circumstances and struggles in life to the point that we get to where we say, I can't take it anymore. This is more than I can bear. Why would he do that? So what I want to do today is I wanted to share with you 2 reasons that God does give us more than we can handle. The first one is this. God will give us more than we can handle to teach us to depend on his presence. To teach us to depend on his presence in our life. Have you ever noticed that when things in life are going good, when things in life are going the way that we want to, we kind of lose focus on God? And he's not quite as important. We don't pray as often to him. We don't read his word as much when life is going really good, when things are falling into place. We sometimes might even get to the point that we forget about God. Except on Sundays, of course. I know if you're here on Sunday morning, you're remembering God and you sing about Him. But sometimes during the week, we forget about God because everything is going so well. I mean, do we really need Him right now? Everything is fine. But the moment when things start going downhill, when life becomes a struggle, when it becomes more than we can handle, when life is difficult every day, then that's when we turn to God. That's when we seek God's presence. It's when everything is turning bad. In the Old Testament, Jonah's life is going really well. In his village, his life is going really well. And then God walks up and says, Jonah, I want you to go preach repentance to the Ninevites. And Jonah's like, nope, not happening. I don't like those people. I'm not going. It's not what, I don't have what it takes. This is more than I can handle. I'm not going to do this. So he refuses God and he runs away from God. Well, he tries to run away from God. And as he's trying to run away from God, he's starting to run into hassles and difficulties, and life is becoming more than it can handle. To the point that he gets on a boat. He stows away on a boat to get away from the country altogether. And on the boat, in the middle of a storm, when the boat is about to sink, they throw Jonah overboard, and he's swallowed by a whale. This story is really getting amazing, isn't it? And you get into Jonah in chapter 2. You get in Jonah chapter 2, and this is what Jonah says. I want you to listen to what Jonah says. In my distress, in the middle of more than I can handle, in the midst of I can't take this, I don't have what it takes, in the middle of more than I can handle, I called to the Lord and He answered me. And notice, Jonah did not say, in my success, I called to the Lord. Jonah had a successful life. When God spoke to him, he ran away. He didn't say, in my success, I'll call to the Lord, but in my distress. Isn't it amazing how we'll need God during our distress and we'll overlook or avoid God in our success? We'll seek God. We'll look for God. We'll plead to God in our distress, but we'll avoid God in our success. In my distress, I called to the Lord and He answered me. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a storm, in the middle of something that you can't handle, that you don't have what it takes, it's more than you can handle, this is much more than I can handle, I'm right in, and it can feel like the world is closing in around you? That's the image of being in the belly of a whale. It's all closing in, and when you get like Jonah and you're in the middle of that storm, have you ever wondered about God, if He's there? I mean, if God is really here, then this shouldn't be happening to me. If God's really watching me, this shouldn't be happening. If God's desire and God's purpose is to make me happy, this shouldn't be happening. But we learned last week God's purpose for us is not that we seek our happiness, but we seek His holiness. If God wants me to be happy, this would be. I don't believe God's around. I don't believe God is paying attention. And if you've ever thought that way, this is something I think a lot of you and myself sometimes need to hear. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. Never. That was good. I'm going to say that again. Let me try to do it on this side, because somebody's going to hear it and say, oh, yeah. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. Okay, see, you never let that storm cause you to doubt His presence, because, I mean, life is in life, the wind is going to pick up. In life, the waves are going to get bigger. They start crashing on you. A storm is going to come. And never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God, because He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He will never turn His back on you. That's a promise from God, even in the middle of a storm. David even said in Psalm 145, he said this, the Lord is near to all who succeed. The Lord is near to all who call on Him. To all who call on Him in truth. And to call on the Lord in truth, or to call on God in truth, what that means is that when life is good, we praise God, we call on God, and we seek God. And when we're in the middle of a storm, we call on God and we seek God. There is no difference in God's truth. No matter what's happening in our life, we call on God. Because when we call on God, what that means is we're seeking His presence. And the scriptures have told us in Jeremiah that if we would seek God with all of our heart, in truth, if we would seek God, we will find him. When we draw near to God, he draws near to us. He's never far away. He's right there, even in the middle of the storms. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. It's because it's in these storms of life, when we don't think we can handle it, in the middle of these storms, when it's more than we can handle, God makes us who we are in him. Maybe we should desire more storms in our life, because then we'd experience God's presence in our life. And now many of you can probably join me and say this, that we are who we are today because God gave us more than we could handle, or God brought us to a place that there was nowhere else to turn but to him. And it's created us who we are today. See, life is like that. One day we're on the top of a mountain with God, and the next day we're in a valley. And I know that I can talk about being on the mountaintop with God and those mountaintop experiences, and we can relate to those. Yes, it's great up there on the mountain, but let me tell you something. I've experienced God better in the valley. Down there where it's like I've been forgotten and there's nobody else left, and I turn to God. That's where I've experienced God. I experienced him best, because when it's more than I can handle, when I don't have what it takes, then I cry out. And God is there. It reminds me of the 23rd Psalm, where it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, even though I walk through something that's more than I can handle, even though I walk through something that I can't handle, that I don't have what it takes, even though I'm in the middle of this storm, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. God's presence is with me. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. I mean, why would God give us more than we can handle? So that he could teach us to depend on his presence. Now, I need a volunteer. And I'm not using the gloves. Perry? Okay, Perry's my volunteer. Thank you, Perry. Come on up. Oh, I didn't see Jimmy. I saw you. Come on up here. I think. Yeah. Okay, so Daniel, I want you have a watch, or you got a timer? Because I'm going to pay Perry $60 an hour for this.
The clock started at 9:30.
It did. No, it's almost 10:15. I might wait, but here's $5 because it's only going to last 5 minutes. Now, I want you to reach out and hold this $5 straight out. Hold it up like that so they can see it. Now, Perry's arm's going to stay right here for 5 minutes because of how strong he is. Now, if that 5 minutes is going now, okay? If his arm moves at all, if it goes down or goes up, don't or nothing like that, but you let me know when time runs out. And right there, okay? See, now God will give us more than we can handle. I'm not ignoring you or anything, but God will give us more than we can handle so we can depend on his presence. The second reason God will give us more than we can handle is so that he can teach us to experience his strength and his power. So we can experience his power, not our power. I'm focused on his power, not our power, because too often in our lives, we'll try to do things on our own, in our own power. We'll try to figure it out because we believe, even when things are more than we can handle, we believe that since God will not give me more than I can handle, then I can do this on my own. I've heard it over and over. God will never give me more than I can handle. So if it's never more than I can handle, I know what my limitations are. I can do this on my own. The reality is there are times in life, there are times when life is more than we ever thought we'd have to handle. We don't have what it takes, and we'll feel defeated. We'll feel crushed. We'll be overwhelmed by all the struggles and the circumstances, whether it's with a job, whether we're raising children, whether it's in a marriage relationship or a friendship relationship, or an illness hits the family, it's more than we can handle, or a death affects the family and it's more than we can handle. And what we'll learn is we are not as strong as we think we are. We can tell the world that we can handle anything because God will never give us more than we can handle. But when we do have something, we are not as strong as we think we are. So when we're faced with more than we can handle, when we're faced with things that we can't control, when the storms begin to overwhelm us and put us like in a belly of a whale and surrounding us, and we aren't strong enough to deal with it, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to give up? No, thank you, my assistant here. No, we're not supposed to give up. Or maybe we should do like the Apostle Paul. Maybe we should become more like the Apostle Paul when we read about him in Corinthians. Because for years, Paul had this thorn in his flesh. And we don't know what that thorn was. Some believe it was his eyesight because he had to dictate and had somebody else write his letters. But that's why I kind of tend to lean that way too. But he pleaded with God repeatedly. Take this away. Take this pain away. Remove this thorn from me. This is more than I can handle. I can't deal with this. Would you take this away from me? And God's answer to Paul was, my grace is sufficient for you. That's no. I'm not taking this away. I'm actually going to allow it to stay in your life. It is consistently going to be more than you can handle. And I'm doing this because the very next thing he says was that, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Paul, my power. You need to rely on my power. You're wanting something for yourself. I want to show you I'm in control. Let's just let that go. You're going to keep that to your last day. You're going to have this thorn in your flesh. But my power. If you would rely on my power is made perfect in your weakness. And what it means to us is in our admitting that we don't have what it takes. That we can't handle this. If we would admit that we can't handle this, we're admitting our weakness. And when we admit our weakness, God's power takes over. It completely replaces us with his power. That's why when you read in 2 Corinthians, that's why when Paul starts talking, you think he's talking out of his head and it's nonsense. And this is what you're doing, okay? Carol, I'm in a lot of trouble. Wendy, am I in a lot of trouble? You're cheering him on? Yeah. Cheering him on. You're taking him out to lunch, it looks like. All right, 2 Corinthians. This is what Paul said. It seems like nonsense when he first said it. But you have to understand, God is talking to him and saying, no, I'm not taking this away from you. I'm going to give you more than you can handle just so you can experience my power. And that's why, Paul's saying, that's why, because of God's power, because God has promised his power, that's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses. I take pleasure in the insults. I take pleasure in the hardships. I take pleasure in the persecutions. I take pleasure in the troubles that I suffer for Christ. I can deal with more than I can handle. Even though I can't take it, even though I'm not strong enough, I can deal with this because God's power is now in me. For when I am weak, then I am what? Strong. Say that again. When I am weak, then I am strong. All of it. For when I am weak, I am strong. How you doing? How do you do?
That's my kid people out there.
There you go. Nice job. I tried it last night. I couldn't do it. You're a lot younger than I am. Take Wendy out to eat. Sonic has a Sunday chicken dinner for $5. That's what it was. Reaching back there, pulling out that flag. All right. When I am weak, when I admit that I'm weak, that I don't have what it takes, and when life is more than I can handle, then I tap into the power of God. I tap into his power. Understand, the power of God is the same power that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in me. I don't know if you've ever thought about that before, but the same power that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in us. It's in us. That same power, that same power has no limits. There's no limitations in what we could do with that power inside of us. That same power goes beyond my human ability to comprehend how powerful that would be in my life. Somebody said I have to ask, what would that power look like? What would that power look like in my life? How can I tell? How can I tell if I'm living in God's power and not my own? How can I tell? I can't tell you how you'll know. I can tell you how I've experienced God's power. I've experienced his power in my life when I have the least to bring. You know, when I'm physically exhausted, when I am mentally discouraged, emotionally spent, and spiritually drained. When I have nothing else left. And I've been there in those moments where it's dark and I don't see a way out. There are no doors, there are no windows. It's more than I can handle. And what I've done, that in that moment right then, when I've cried out and called out, he's answered. And he's given me power. His power. When I feel that, then I step out of my limited power of what I can do, and I step into his limitless power. You probably wouldn't understand it. There's some Sundays when I get up here, I have nothing. I have nothing. But when I walk out, I step out of limited into limitless and say, God, here we go. Let's see what you can do. Because all I got is words on the page. Let's see what you can do. See, when I step out of my power into God's power, now in the middle of the storm, I'm sailing. I'm not rowing anymore. And some of you know what I'm talking about because you're rowing right now. You're in the middle of a storm and water is coming in and you're rowing as hard as you can and you're not getting anywhere. It's more than you can handle. I mean, if you look at your life as a boat and you get in your life and you're out there on the sea, it's nice and calm. But then when the storm comes up, you start rowing because there's the shore. I got to get over there. Why? If God is never going to give me more than I can handle, it's going to be just a regular storm. And I can get there. I can do this. I can row. I can row to that shore. But when the storm gets big and it becomes more than we can handle, I mean, for a little while, we can do it. Yeah, I can make it. I can make it. I can get there. And we can do that for a little while, but then until that day, we can't row anymore. And we didn't make it to the shore. And we're stuck in the middle of a storm. In my distress, when it's more than I can handle, when I can't take it anymore, and I can't get there on my own because I'm not as strong as I think I am, then I call out to the Lord and he answers. And in the middle of that storm, you know what he's going to tell you? Because he's told me before, he's going to tell you the same thing. Raise the sail. Raise the sail and allow the power of my Spirit. Let my power direct you. Let my power get you there. You can't do it, but let me, because my power is limited. I'll fill that sail and we'll go. You just let me, just raise the sail. That's all he's saying to us. Just raise the sail. Right? Because then I'm reminded that God's power is made perfect in my weakness. But when I'm weak, when I recognize that I can't handle things or it's more than I can handle and I just don't have what it takes, without the presence and power of God, then I am strong. This is what Paul is telling us. That's what the Scripture tells us. That's what God is. Why would God give us more than we can handle? So that we would learn to depend on his presence in the good times and in the middle of the storm. Why would God give us more than we can handle? So we could experience his power in our life, to make a change in our life. So this is what I think God tells us when he gives us more than we can handle. Stop rowing. Let's go sailing. And guess what God tells us? So sometimes, maybe we need to look for a storm just to see what God can do in our lives. Let's pray. God, there's times, where we think we have it under control because we're pretty strong. You've created some strong human beings, and we're pretty strong-willed, too. We're pretty determined. That's just a kind way of saying we're stubborn. Because we don't think you'll give us more than we can handle. We just don't believe you'll give us more than we can handle because we've heard in our lives that God would never give you more than you can handle. But we look at examples in the Bible. Some of your faithful ones. And you gave each of them more than they could handle. You even gave your son. more than he could handle. But when he relied on your power, when he said, not my will, but yours, Jesus stepped out of his limited power as a human, stepped into the realm of godly and holy, and received your power to die on a cross for us. It's in this life sometimes, God, we forget about you because things are going good. But then you give us more than we can handle to remind us. You're right here. Always have been, always will be. If we just call on you. If we just call on you as Lord. Because you are Lord. Not just something in our imagination. You are Lord, creator of all things, the master of the universe. Amazing creator. Who gave us life and breath, every heartbeat. Without you, we stay in the belly of a whale. But because we call to you, we come out of this darkness. We come out of this struggle. We come out of this more than we can handle. We're no longer rowing, God. We're sailing with you. It's so much better to sail with you in a storm. It's so much better to have your presence when there's no one else to turn to but you. It's so assuring, so comforting. And many of us, God, we're here this morning. We're being reminded of this. It's all coming back. Yes, I've been through those storms. I've experienced that. Yes, I've gone through more than I can handle. And some are sitting here this morning saying, my life is so messed up. My life is so hard. I can't take it anymore. God, you're the same God to them as you are to them. You were the same on this side and that side. You're always the same. You are faithful. You're always faithful. We will call on you. You will answer. And you will give us a strength. You'll give us a power that we never thought possible to live our lives. So God, today we realize that, we recognize that, we admit our weakness so that your strength can abound in us, so that your strength can grow through us and shine through us and lead us in where you want us to be and become who you've called us to be, holy and righteous in your eyes, to live a life that way. God, we worship and we praise you today for the love that you show us, for the love that you have for us, the challenges that you give us. And when you give us more than we can handle, God, we'll even shout your name in that and praise you for that. Because you are God, and we praise you. We thank you. We love you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.